League of Legends has over 160 champions, and every single one of them has an ultimate designed to be the most powerful tool in their kit. But some ultimates aren't just powerful, they're iconic. So today, we're breaking down the best ultimates in the game, starting with the one that wrote the rulebook, Shockwave. Orianna's Shockwave is the textbook teamfight ultimate. Every AoE ult in the game gets compared to this one, and most of them lose. Here's the thing about Shockwave. You don't aim it, you set it up. The ball sits on a teammate or in a choke point before the fight even starts, and by the time you press R, the outcome was already decided by your positioning. It pulls every enemy in a 415 radius toward the ball's location. That's one of the largest teamfight zones in the game. The damage is respectable, but the real value is the displacement. It physically relocates enemy champions regardless of what they were trying to do. Backline hiding behind their tank? Not anymore. Shockwave rips them forward and hard resets the entire fight. New players think she's hard because the ball feels unintuitive. Pros think she's almost too consistent. That gap tells you everything you need to know. But if Shockwave is the gold standard for teamfight control, the next ultimate proves you don't even need to be in the same lane to change a fight. Enchanted Crystal Arrow. Ashe's ultimate is the longest skill shot in the entire game. We're talking a global range, which in practical terms means it's only limited by the size of the map itself. You can fire this thing from your own fountain and hit someone recalling in the opposite corner, and the further it travels, the more devastating it becomes. A point-blank arrow stuns for 1 second. A cross-map snipe, 3.5 seconds. That's an eternity in a team fight. But here's the thing. You miss, and you're basically a walking auto-attack bot while your team fights without their primary engage tool, which is, you know, not ideal. The cooldown does scale down with rank, and cooldown reduction helps, but early game especially, whiffing this thing hurts. Casual players will tell you it's easy to land. Pro players will tell you it's one of the hardest abilities in the game, because at max range, traveling at 1,600 units per second, the enemy has literal seconds to sidestep it. And yet it's been a staple in professional play for years, across every major region. The risk-reward is just too good to pass up. But if you think a cross-map arrow is impressive map pressure, wait until you see an ultimate that gives you vision of every single enemy on the map at once. Destiny. Most ultimates in League of Legends do one thing. They deal damage, they stun, they reposition. Twisted Fate's Destiny does something far more dangerous. It gives you information. For 6 seconds, every single enemy champion on the map is revealed. All 5 of them. Doesn't matter if they're in a bush, in fog of war, or sneaking through your jungle. You see everything. Casual players focus on the teleport. They see Twisted Fate appear in a side lane with a gold card locked and loaded, and they think that's the ultimate. It's not. The teleport is the dessert. The vision is the entire meal. In coordinated play, revealing 5 enemy positions is genuinely oppressive. Your team knows exactly where to push, where to invade, and who's alone. It turns every decision your opponents make into a losing one because you already know where they are. This is why pro players don't call Destiny a combat ultimate. They call it a macro ultimate. It tests whether you understand the game well enough to know when pressing R wins more than any teamfight ever could. But if information warfare sounds scary, wait until you see what happens when someone literally traps you in a cage with no way out. Cataclysm. Jarvan 4 leaps into the air, slams down on a target, and creates a literal arena of terrain around them. Everyone caught inside, enemies and allies, is stuck in a 325 radius prison for up to 3.5 seconds. No walking out. Though dashes and blinks can get you through the walls, if you don't have one, you're staying put. The damage is solid too. 200/350/500 base damage plus 1.8 bonus AD scaling makes it one of the harder hitting engage ultimates in the game. Landed on 3 or 4 people, and you've basically gift-wrapped a team fight for your carries. But here's where Jarvan players earn their reputation, because the arena traps everyone, including your own team. There is nothing quite like watching a Jarvan proudly slam down on the enemy Zed, only to realize he just locked his own ADC inside a cage with an assassin who now has the easiest kill of their life. Don't worry guys, I'm engaging. Great! You've engaged your Jinx directly into a coffin. The difference between a career-making Cataclysm and a career-ending one is about 2 seconds of thought. And speaking of assassins who make carries disappear, let's talk about Zed, Deathmark. Zed places a shadow on you, beats you up for 3 seconds, and then walks away. You think you survived. You start recalling, and then you just die. That's Deathmark, and it's the ultimate that turns League of Legends into a math test you didn't study for. Zed marks a target, and for the next 3 seconds, every single point of physical damage he deals gets recorded. When the mark detonates, it replays a percentage of that stored damage as bonus physical damage. The result is an invisible calculation most players don't notice until their health bar vanishes. The damage isn't instant, it's a promise. Zed hits you, you walk away feeling fine, and then the mark pops and you're watching a gray screen. The casual community has called this ability broken since launch. Unblockable, unfair, zero counterplay. But that's not true. Every single point of damage in that mark is preventable. Zhonya's Hourglass, proper positioning, even just building armor. Quicksilver Sash can cleanse the mark entirely. Pros know this. They bait the mark, neutralize the pressure, and punish the cooldown window. But casuals, they just see the gray screen and type FF15. It's the ultimate that rewards players who actually understand how damage formulas work. And if you think invisible math is scary, wait until you see what Set does with pure, visible brute force. The showstopper, Set literally suplexes a human being into another group of human beings. That's the ultimate. That's the whole thing. And somehow, it's one of the best abilities in the entire game. Here's how it works. Set grapples the nearest enemy champion, launches himself into the air, and slams them into the ground at a target location. The primary target takes a percentage of their own bonus health as physical damage on top of base damage and AD scaling, while everyone in the impact zone takes damage and gets slowed. It combines single target suppression with an AoE teamfight bomb, functioning as both a pick tool and a teamfight disruptor simultaneously. But the real beauty is the versatility. Set can be 0 and 5, grab the enemy tank and suplex them directly into their own backline. The fatter the tank, the more damage the slam deals to everyone nearby. Suddenly the worst player on your team just turned the enemy's own front line into a weapon. It works when you're ahead, it works when you're behind, and it looks absolutely incredible every single time. Every time the ability receives even minor buffs, Set's play rate spikes, because people remember how good it feels to be a professional wrestler in a strategy game. But if slamming one champion into a team is satisfying, imagine pressing one button and hitting every enemy on the map at the same time. Requiem. Karthus has the only ultimate in the game that punishes you for existing. No skill shot, no range limit, no line of sight requirement. If you are alive on the enemy team, you are taking damage. That's the targeting criteria. You have a health bar, and Karthus has opinions about it. Requiem channels for 3 seconds, and then hits every single enemy champion on the map for 200/350/500 base damage, plus a 0.75 AP ratio. There is literally nowhere to hide. You could be recalling in your fountain, and Karthus will reach out and touch you from across the entire map. But here's where it gets genuinely weird. Karthus is the only champion who gets more dangerous after he dies. His passive lets him keep casting for 7 seconds after death, which means he can channel Requiem from beyond the grave. He wants to die in the middle of your team, dump his damage, and then press R while his corpse is still warm. Death is not a punishment, it's a power spike. The cooldown sits at 200/180/160 seconds depending on rank, and that 3-second channel is completely interruptible, which is exactly why pros consider it balanced, while low elo players feel like they're being taxed for the crime of being alive. But if a global nuke feels oppressive, wait until you hear about the ultimate that stuns your entire team through walls. Crescendo. Sona is quietly one of the most devastating teamfight champions in the entire game, and almost nobody in casual play understands why. Here's the thing. Crescendo fires a wave of energy that stuns every enemy it hits in a wide line. It passes through champions, deals 150/300 base damage plus 0.5 AP, and the stun lasts 1.5 seconds. That alone would be strong, but all of that is just the surface level. The mechanic that separates good Sona players from great ones is how Crescendo interacts with her passive aura system. After casting her ultimate, Sona's basic abilities temporarily gain boosted aura effects, meaning the teamfight value doesn't end when the stun wears off. You chain Crescendo into your W for a massive heal and damage reduction aura, or your E to speed your entire team into the cleanup. The ultimate is the setup, not the payoff. This completely inverts the typical support mentality of press R and hope for the best. Competitive players exploit this ruthlessly, timing Crescendo to layer crowd control with their team, and then immediately cycling abilities for maximum aura value. Meanwhile, casual players fire the ult, and then just stand there auto-attacking, which wastes literally half of what makes the ability powerful, which is, not ideal. but if one champion stunning an entire team sounds strong, wait until you see what Ryze can do to relocate them across the map entirely. Realm Warp. Ryze's ultimate doesn't deal damage. It doesn't stun anyone. It doesn't heal, shield, or buff a single stat. It teleports your entire team from one spot on the map to another after a brief channel. That's it, and it's either completely useless or the most broken ability in the game, depending on one single variable, whether your teammates have functioning brains. In solo queue, Realm Warp is a comedy sketch. You channel it, ping desperately, and watch 4 strangers scatter like cockroaches when the lights turn on. Nobody steps into the circle, or worse, one person steps in, panics, and walks back out at the last second. You teleport alone into 5 enemies, you die. Your team pings question marks on your corpse. Beautiful. But in professional play, this ability is a war crime. Coordinated teams use it to teleport 5 players behind enemy lines with 0 warning. 1 second you're setting up for a dragon fight, the next second the entire enemy roster materializes behind your backline, like they just walked through a portal from hell, because they literally did. The gap between its solo queue value and its pro play value is the widest of any ultimate in League. It's not even close. An ability that requires 5 people to think, as one will always be a nightmare in ranked and a masterpiece on stage. But speaking of ultimates with wildly different value depending on context, what happens when someone just steals yours? Hijack. Sylas doesn't have an ultimate. He has yours. That's the entire pitch. 850 range, point and click, and suddenly your Malphite ult belongs to the shirtless guy in chains. He keeps it for 90 seconds, it scales off his ability power, and the cooldown is way shorter than the original, which means if he takes your Malphite ult, he can potentially steal it again before Malphite even gets it back. Not exactly fair, but here's the thing. Sylas's entire value as a champion is determined by what the enemy team drafts. Pick him into a composition with Malphite, Amumu, and Misfortune, congratulations, you're the most broken character in the game. Pick him into a team running Udyr, Vayne, and Nidalee, you've essentially brought a wet napkin to a knife fight. 0 other champion in League has this level of draft dependency. Your power isn't yours, it's theirs. And the meme potential is genuinely unmatched. Sylas stealing a Cho'Gath ult to eat dragon, Sylas grabbing Mordekaiser's Death Realm to send someone to Brazil, Sylas accidentally taking Yuumi's ultimate and just standing there confused, doing basically nothing. Every game is a slot machine. Competitive players respect the draft gamble. Casual players just want to stop seeing their own abilities used against them. Both reactions are completely valid, but if stealing ultimates feels chaotic, wait until you see the champion whose ultimate exists purely to undo chaos entirely. Monsoon. Janna's ultimate is one of the oldest support abilities in the game, dating all the way back to closed beta in 2009. And in all that time, it's never really changed what it does. It just pushes everyone away and heals your team. That's it. That's the whole thing. But here's why it's secretly brilliant. Most ultimates concentrate all their power into one explosive moment. Monsoon doesn't do that. It distributes value over a full 3 seconds, knocking enemies 875 range away on cast while healing allies for up to 150 base plus 0.5 AP per second. Diving into a channeling, Janna is like trying to sprint through a hurricane. You physically cannot reach her team. And here's where it gets fascinating. Monsoon's effectiveness is literally inversely proportional to how good your opponents are. In low-ranked games where everyone dives in one at a time like lemmings with swords, it's borderline unstoppable. Against a coordinated team that knows to just wait it out, it's a 150-second cooldown for a mild inconvenience. It doesn't win fights, it unloses them. That's an important distinction. Janna presses R, and suddenly the fight your team was absolutely losing just got reset to 0. Every engage cancelled, every assassin shoved away, every squishy healed back up. But if you think a defensive windstorm is impressive, wait until you see what Nami does with an entire ocean. Tidal wave. Most ultimates do one thing. Nami's does 2 completely different things depending on which direction you're facing when you press R. Same button, same ability, totally different outcome. Fire it forward into the enemy team, and it's a 2,750 unit engage tool that slows everyone hit by up to 70% for 2 to 4 seconds and knocks them up for 0.5 seconds. It travels through terrain, has no target cap, and covers a wide enough arc that dodging it requires actual effort. Fire it backward, and suddenly it's a peel tool, buying your carries enough time to reposition while the enemy frontline gets stopped in their tracks. One decision, forward or backward, engage or disengage. That's what separates a one-team fight from a lost one. Now, people love to point out that Tidal Wave is one of the most forgiving ultimates in the game. The hitbox is massive. Missing it entirely takes genuine commitment to failure. But here's the thing. Reliability is power. A flashy ultimate you land 30% of the time is mathematically worse than a simple one you land 90% of the time. Nami doesn't need highlight reels. She just needs to face the right direction. But if you want an ultimate where consistency meets devastation, wait until you see what happens when the saddest mummy in the game starts crying. Curse of the Sad Mummy. There's no outplay here. There's no reaction time, no flash window, no just dodge it bro advice that actually applies. Amumu presses R and every single enemy within 550 units is entangled for 2 full seconds. That's it. That's the whole ability. 150 base damage at rank 1, scaling to 350 plus 0.8 AP, applied instantly to everyone nearby with 0 damage fall off. You're standing at the edge? Full damage. You're right on top of him? Full damage. You're behind terrain? Doesn't matter. The entangle prevents movement and auto attacks while still letting you cast spells, which somehow feels even more insulting because you can see exactly what's happening and still can't walk away from it. And here's what makes it genuinely special. This ultimate rewards the one thing mechanical skill can't replace: knowing when to go in. A bronze player with perfect timing on Amumu R will win more teamfights than a diamond player who hesitates. It's the great equalizer. You don't need to aim it. You don't need to combo it. You just need to be in the right place at the right time and press one button. Is it cheap to die to? Absolutely. But that's exactly the point. The 120-second cooldown is the only thing keeping this ability honest. But if you think pressing one button to win a team fight is impressive, wait until you see what happens when someone presses one button and it requires actual hands. Dragon's Rage, the ultimate that defined what outplay even means in League of Legends. Lee Sin's Dragon's Rage kicks a target enemy champion, dealing 175/400/625 base damage, plus a 2.0 bonus AD scaling. Let that number sit for a second. That's one of the highest AD ratios on any ability in the entire game, and it's strapped to a point-blank kick that requires you to be standing on top of someone to use it. But the damage isn't even the point. The kick sends the target in the direction Lee Sin is facing, which means every single kick is a geometry problem. You need to know where you are, where the enemy is, where your team is, and where the enemy is going to flash, all in about half a second. Get it right, and you deliver a squishy carry directly into your team's waiting arms. Get it wrong, and you just saved their life, which is, not ideal. The insect kick alone changed Professional League forever. One player ward hopping behind a target and kicking them backward into his team, and suddenly every jungler on the planet was expected to do the same thing. The skill ceiling on this ability is essentially infinite. No other ultimate rewards pure mechanical talent this consistently. Every Lee Sin highlight reel is proof that this kick is the crown jewel of outplay expression. But if Dragon's Rage is the king of mechanical skill, our last ultimate proves that sometimes raw power delivered from across the entire map is just as satisfying. Final Spark. Every other ultimate on this list rewards you for getting closer. Get in their face, land the combo, commit to the fight. Final Spark looks at that entire philosophy and says, no thanks. Lux's ultimate fires a laser that extends 3,340 units in a straight line, making it one of the longest range offensive ultimates in the game. It deals 300/400/500 base damage plus a 0.75 AP ratio, which is already solid. But here's where it gets interesting. If Lux has already marked a target with her passive illumination, a Final Spark detonates that mark for bonus magic damage on top of everything else. So she gets to poke you, tag you with passive, and then finish you off from across the map with a laser that refreshes the mark again. She doesn't have to choose between setting up damage and executing. She gets both in the same rotation, from a screen and a half away. Every other champion has to weigh risk against reward. Lux just doesn't, and she gets to do it constantly. At max rank with some ability haste, the cooldown drops absurdly low, sometimes under 30 seconds. That's not an ultimate cooldown. That's a regular ability on a slightly longer timer. The half-second cast animation gives enemies a brief window to dodge, and the community will never let Lux players forget how often they miss, despite the laser being roughly the width of a bus. But nobody cares about the misses, because when that giant beam of light cuts across half the map and vaporizes someone who thought they were safe under tower, it's one of the most satisfying moments in League. Sometimes the best play really is just pressing R from another zip code. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.